I was in fact a Christian theologian. I was involved with starting a church. I failed to defend the manuscript, the evidence towards the authenticity of biblical manuscripts. It led me astray from the path. I lost my faith in Christianity.
Brother Ezra, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Now you've been a Muslim a year, nearly a year.
Yes.
Since last Ramadan.
Exactly.
How did you come to know about Islam and become interested in it?
I started off just a bit of like tracing back to where I came from. I was in fact a Christian theologian, and I was involved with starting a church and doing my master's in theology at the same time in a university somewhere in the UK. And so along the lines, I lost my faith in Christianity.
You were born as a Christian?
I was born as a Christian. In fact, I was born as an Anglican. And so I was pursuing a path towards ordination within the church.
Oh.
And so...
wanted to become a priest?
Yeah, I was aiming for that. Mm-hmm. But it didn't turn out well. It turned out very sour.
Why? What happened?
So we were doing a lot of studies in terms of biblical scholarships. One was on textual criticism. The other was on manuscript origins. What struck me the most was, in fact, the manuscript origins, whereby there are many copies. There were copies after copies, in fact. And what happened along the way, the more copies that you have, the lesser degree towards the originality, which means you wouldn't even know whether the earliest manuscript is the original manuscript. And so the question that I raised to my supervisor at that time, so what happened to the original manuscript? So his answer was his and her answer, because I had two supervisors along the line. They said to me, you can never find the original one. And in fact, we can only call it a Q source. And so this Q source, meaning to say it's an unknown source.
Wow.
And I said to them, if our neighboring religions out there, regardless of who they are or where they are, they can trace back their original manuscripts from thousands of years ago, why not Christianity? And they don't even have the answer to that. And the only thing they told me, why don't you come up with a thesis on that? And so I did my thesis on that.
Oh, that's why you became interested in researching it.
Yes. Ah. So when I did my thesis on that, I failed to defend the manuscript, the evidence towards the authenticity of biblical manuscripts. In fact, it led me astray from the path. And so I told myself, you know what, I don't think I can stand this. I need to get out of here, start searching again. And I recall my prayer at that time was like, dear God, show me the truth. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but reveal me along the lines. And that's all I asked. So the next morning I woke up in peace, as if like I'm not bound to anything, and put down everything, quit masters, came back.
When was that? When did?
After COVID, in fact, it happened around before 2022. 2021 was the last time.
So you gave up even the studies?
Yeah, I gave up the studies even. I gave up reading the Bible. I gave up almost everything. And so if one is to know me back then, about 3 years ago, I don't think there's a proper classification towards my religious belief at that time, whether I was agnostic, atheist, a free thinker, or whatever that is. The best classification that I would describe myself was what Karen Armstrong used to describe herself, which is a free monotheist. That means I believe in one God, but I wouldn't know
But no commitment.
Yeah, there's zero commitment to a certain religious convictions. But that gave me a ground to, in fact, study other religions until I met a few individuals along the lines of the Islamic faith. So they showed me the path, and time flies. I met an old relative of mine who happened to be my cousin. He's an ustad in this country, and
A revert?
a revert, and he's a revert since the age of 18.
Are you Chinese?
I'm Iban,
Okay. The indigenous
the indigenous
population.
population in Borneo itself. And so it's rare to see an Iban Muslim, in fact, especially in Malaysia.
And an ustad also.
And Ustad, exactly. And the best part is he's my cousin. And so he and another friend of his, who happened to be from the same place where my family comes from, we actually had a discussion. You know what? Let's help you through, unpack everything one by one about whatever questions that you have about Islam. Let's just study it together. So we did that study, and during Ramadan itself, they invited me to an iftar session in a mosque, and we had a bit of a tour. It was like a private tour, and my cousin took a further initiative to show me how a wudu, or an ablution, is done. And that was the moment where I felt like this is different. And I was asking myself, what comes next after this? In my heart, I'm like, dear God, if you really want me to be a Muslim, I guess do something about it. Perhaps convict someone to ask me a question, which eventually, as people always describe, be careful of what you wish for, especially in your heart. One of them actually asked me randomly, and he said, I don't want to force you, but I just have a question that I felt convicted to ask you. Do you want to be a Muslim? And do you think that you want to take Shahada here? And I'm like, why not? And he looked at me, he's like, you're serious? Yeah, let's do it here. He was like, whoa, okay, let me arrange something. So he started arranging with the mosque committees and the rest of the people. And it was a huge event, not just the iftar, but it was like, it's huge because I happened to be a non-Muslim at that time, wanting to revert. And so they had to accommodate everything accordingly within a short time frame. And they were asking me, do you want to do your Shahada before Maghrib, or do you want to do it after Maghrib, before Isha? And I said, why not? You guys do your Maghrib first, and then after that, let's just do it somewhere private before Isha. So I have that time to just kind of like
Get ready.
Yeah, just get ready. Yeah, I mean, my heart. I need to kind of like, okay, what did I just said? and so a lot of people just came to me slowly, and then I recall there was this one guy by the name of Amar. He was just asking me about what led you to Islam, and I said it's just a lot of things, man. And I told him 3 years without faith, and then God eventually showed me dreams. I think it's a message from Allah. And Allah showed me dreams, Allah showed me people. Now that Allah showed me something about ablution and what it does to you spiritually, it's enlightening. It's as if like my burdens have been taken off.
Well, you asked him for guidance,
Yeah.
didn't you?
Yeah, I did. and I constantly asked for guidance throughout 3 years. And I've been arguing with people along the way. I've been like a typical non-Muslim stereotyping Islam at that time.
Especially in your case that you were really a committed Christian and specializing in Christianity and aspiring to become a priest or a monk. And usually there's a package with all of this, a package that is very negative vis-a-vis Islam.
Yeah.
So it would not have been easy.
It hasn't been that easy. In fact, I grew up with, although on my dad's side, I have an aunt who is a revert, and she reverted to Islam in 1998. And we've remained very close to her, especially during Eid festivals. We used to go to her place. And she was the best impression of Muslims that we've seen so far. Apart from that would be few key educators that we bump into, like our teachers and all that. And so most of it came from very negative sources, especially social media. And there's always like a family discussion, especially from the distant ones who have been like, Islam is this. Look at what the bombings have done, and or why are there many contradictions of the Islamic faith? And so that 3 years of my life searching, I was unpacking almost everything. I was looking back at the theory of violence based on the theological perspective that I built. In fact, I would say even Christianity has its own sets of inconsistencies, and in fact, other religions would have it. But in Islam, one thing that I discovered is that you can find almost zero inconsistencies in the Quran.
Yes.
It's almost every key. I was trying to look for all sorts of inconsistencies. I was trying to look for some of the odd things that you can find. I was trying to debate against it. But the more I understand it, the more I understand every precept of the Quran, all the way from Al-Fatiha all the way to An-Nas. That's where I told myself, this book is almost
it's
precise in every way.
And it's the original.
Exactly.
Nobody tampered with it.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem with all other religions really is that humans played a major role in what ended up being their Gospels or their Talmud or their Torah or their Bible, etc. Now, in your case, you mentioned that you had an aunt who had embraced Islam before.
Yeah.
And she was accepted by the family.
She was accepted by her siblings. That includes my dad. But my late grandfather had a hard time accepting her back.
Oh, really? Now, in your case, when you became a Muslim, what was the response of the family?
My mother refused to talk to me.
Oh.
My dad, however, is pretty much on and off. My sister is feeling heavy. And so the only person that I've been in touch with would be my brother-in-law. And few cousins that are still accepting. And so
it's been a major challenge, hasn't it?
It's been a challenge throughout this year, since the moment that I embraced Islam. But alhamdulillah, I think there is a wisdom in what I believe when people reject you, regardless whether they're family or friends. There are people who are there standing up to you as your new family. And I'm blessed to actually find new brothers and sisters, and some people who have been standing up with me through thick and thin. And in fact, if you to be fair, there are so many tests. And a lot of people have warned me before, being a Muslim is going to be a life of test.
You're going to be tested, yes.
Yeah. And the closer you are to Allah, the more tests you're going to have, and the harder it becomes. And I recall I was telling someone, and I said, I thought my family was the biggest test of my life, but it turns out there are so many other tests, and it's happening within that year itself. And I'm like, that was fast.
Well, that's the promise Allah made in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ankabut, Alif Lam Mim. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فلا يعلمن الله الذين صدقوا ولا يعلمن الكاذبين. Allah will test you because Allah will want to know whether you are truthful or not. And it's inevitable that you will be tested. And these tests come in a variety of ways depending on the circumstances of a person concerned. So first you had your family.
Yes.
Your friends, probably. Mm-hmm. What other tests have you been subjected to?
Financially, it's one of the biggest tests I'm going through, in fact. And
it affected your work?
It's affecting my work. It's affecting almost everything. And so, in that way, there are times where I just wonder, will I be surviving the next day? Will I be waking up with at least a cash in my hand just to pay off whatever bills that I have? But whenever I do that, I always ended up waking up early in the morning, and deep inside my heart, there's always this conviction that says, go back to your Lord. Go back to your Lord and pray. You have all these things, go back to your Lord and pray. And whenever I do that, it's as if my burdens have been lifted. Yeah, it's just a form of assurance to say, your life is in the hands of Allah.
True.
Well, what else can you do? You're in no way you're going to solve that problem in a short period of time. There's no way. But Allah has His hand on you, so you shouldn't fear or nor be anxious about what's coming up tomorrow. He has promised that in the midst of difficulties, there's going to be ease for you. And somehow that message that keeps in my heart, that burns in my heart, is always, whenever I go to a mosque or whenever I perform my prayer, there will be a specific surah that as if it speaks to me. And whenever I do that, I would just go back to my Quran and just look at the translations. I'm like, what is Allah saying to me on this thing? Why? And somehow whenever I speak to people about my problems, they also say the same thing to me. And it's as if they know that I'm going through these things. And alhamdulillah, I mean, the community, I'm blessed with that kind of community. The community that constantly pays attention.
And I think here in Malaysia, the fact that it's a majority Muslim country, you cannot feel lonely, can you? If you want, you will always have someone with you.
Yeah, in a way.
Unlike, for instance, in some of the cases I have come across in the West, where someone converts to Islam, and because there is a small Muslim community, or because the Muslims are so preoccupied with their own problems and their own affairs, this newcomer into Islam suddenly feels lonely. And loneliness can be very frustrating.
Yeah. It's, well, I've heard 50-50 cases whereby, which raised a lot of fear back then, for the first 3 years before my conversion, or my perhaps reverting to Islam. One was, I heard a lot of stories whereby people who reverted to Islam in Malaysia, whenever they go through some difficulties, they were left alone their
Oh, there are
hardships.
cases of
There
this
are
sort.
cases as such. And on another hand, there are also groups of people who found a community and they are well taken care of, but in a short period of time. And for in my case, one of the things that I fear the most is that the previous category, which is the ones who have been left alone in their journey. Again, we don't know what people are going through in their life, and at the best that we can do is to be alongside of them and say, we got you on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Allah has His hands on you, and so we shouldn't be anxious. We should be the least anxious.
Well, Muslims have a responsibility, I think, in this regard. I mean, I would feel guilty if I knew someone who has just come into Islam and who is in need and I do nothing about it. I think Allah will ask us about this.
Yeah.
It is a responsibility.
Yeah, that I agree.
One of the stories I hear frequently in Europe is that when someone embraces Islam, he or she are celebrated by the Muslim community, but then the day after, they find themselves alone again. But there are, of course, other cases in which the exact opposite happens. But in your community, the indigenous population of Borneo, is Islam spreading? Are more people coming toward Islam?
Oh yeah, there are a lot more numbers. It's one thing about Islam today. We often than not, we've been hearing a lot of growth almost in every nation, and that includes in Borneo itself. And I've heard quite a lot of stories because I have relatives throughout the Borneo Island, whether it's in Sarawak, whether it's in Sabah, Brunei, or even Kalimantan. And I've heard stories of people taking shahadas in one entire longhouse, took shahada, embraced Islam, and they abandoned everything that was associated to their past lives, and now they're building mosques, they're building Islamic learning centers, they're also building an Islamic welfare fund just to fund those who are in need within their community. And in fact, the government, the state government, is also helping out these villages to actually ease their burdens and do whatever necessary developments that they need to be done.
Now, historically, that community was what? Christian in the beginning, or Christianity was conveyed to them at a later stage?
They were a mixture, in fact. Some of them were Christians. Some of them were belonging to a folk religion called Kaharingan, which is common in Kalimantan. And Kaharingan is actually an ancient religion that is based on belief that the supreme god was a bird.
A bird?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of theological understandings behind that, and they in fact they believe that the supreme god was one and had multiple children, and he had 7 sons-in-laws who are incarnated as birds as a sign of warning to humanity, and that is Kaharingan. There are 3 categories, in fact. Christianity, there were Christians, whether Catholic or Protestant, or Seventh-day Adventists. Second category would be Kaharingan. Third would be non-associated ones. And it's growing among the younger indigenous population because the more they study, especially on the field of science and math, they are trying to figure out how to make sense of the existence of God or the existence of supernatural. Because what they're seeing right now is that there are so many forms of superstitions for example, in the indigenous culture, if you just had somebody in your family who had passed away, you're not even allowed to leave your house for 1 month.
Wow.
Yeah. And
whoever the deceased.
Yeah. Whoever that deceased, whether it's your close relative or your distant relative.
How do people earn their living then?
So they would send someone else to do it on their behalf. So the money goes to them. And that kind of practice made a lot of younger generation or the generation after think again.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like, there are other people who have lost their loved ones, but they still come and work. And so that's where they start to think again, like, why should I follow these things when other people are not affected? And that kind of leads to another question. Does God exist? And if there is a God, why do people go through what they are going through? Why isn't God protecting them? Why is God taking away the lives of others? And so these questions, ongoing questions among the indigenous communities. And so what attracts them to Islam is that there is an assurance of, in a way that, although the common stereotype within the non-Muslim communities in Borneo has always been these Muslim evangelists or missionaries would come in, whenever they give da'wah, they give money, they give items, but after that, what's next? But that's the common stereotype. But in actual fact, these guys came in, they not only bring these things, but they actually stay with them, they comfort them. And then when they comfort them, these guys embrace Islam, they still stay with them. And in fact, they built a center just for them, so that whatever happened to the community, these missionaries are updated of what's going on. And in that sense, that's how Islam began to sporadically spread. Because when other communities fail, the Islamic communities are always there to actually make haste to help and to do whatever that's necessary, whether these guys are Muslims or non-Muslims. And the non-Muslims are attracted because of the way they show their examples to others. And sooner or later, they realize this is what the Quran is teaching to people. This is what Allah is saying to people about helping those who are in need, doing something, comfort those who are brokenhearted. And they realize, oh, it's holistic. Whatever Allah is doing, whatever Islam, this religion that Allah has blessed us with, is actually holistic to humanity today.
Well, it's for Al-Alamin, all the world, all the people, all mankind.
Yes.
Well, Alhamdulillah, it's really been a pleasure talking to you, Brother Ezra.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Alhamdulillah.